The Memphis Grizzlies wrapped up their fourth preseason game, and they lost the fourth preseason game. But the biggest surprise was the return of Jaren Jackson Jr. We're going to break that down. We're going to break the game down, some concerns, some positives, all that coming up here on Locked On Grizzlies.
You are Locked On Grizzlies, your daily Memphis Grizzlies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to Locked On Grizzlies. I am your host today, Damichael Cole, beat writer for the Commercial Appeal here in Memphis, Tennessee. Thank you guys for tuning in to Locked On Grizzlies with us each and every day, but specifically on this Thursday edition of the show. Today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Make sure you go take advantage of that now over at Gametime. We got a lot to talk about in today's show. The Grizzlies just wrapped up their fourth preseason game against the Charlotte Hornets. It was also the Grizzlies' fourth loss, a 145-116 beatdown at the hands of Charlotte. But there are bigger things to talk about. I like what Tomas Isolo, the Grizzlies coach, said with the idea of the preseason, and right now being about the process more than the results. Now, look, I'm going to go ahead and get this out the way right now. I'm not about to just ignore the results that we saw in this last game. So don't think when I said that I'm just going to ignore the results. But I like the idea of focusing on the process, because at the end of the day, the Grizzlies might be 0-4 right now, but come October 22nd, when they're playing against the New Orleans Pelicans, they're going to be back to 0-0. So it's all about kind of fine tuning and figuring out some things before you get to that date. But we got to start with Jaren Jackson Jr. Jaren Jackson Jr. is back. I mean, he's a worker. Shout out to Jaren Jackson Jr. He was given on September 26th a 4 to 6 week timeline to be back. After the turf toe surgery and stuff, he was supposed to be back 4 to 6 weeks. That was the timeline that he was given. Well, pretty much what happened was he got back in 2.5 weeks to play in this game. Now, one thing that we heard was that a couple days ago, Isolo said that Jaren Jackson Jr. was significantly improving. So that combined with the fact that we also heard Jock Landale say that Jaren had been, participating in previous training camp practices and things like that, you kind of got a sense that maybe he could, get back by the beginning of the season. But it still was a surprise, with all that being said. But Jaren Jr. is back. Jaren Jackson Jr. is back. Real fast return. But now we got to get into it. What did the return look like against the Charlotte Hornets for Jaren Jackson Jr.? We're going to talk about the offense, and we're going to talk about the defense. Specifically, we're going to start with the offensive end. Jaren finished the game shooting 7 of 20 from the field, 3 of 9 on three-pointers, played about 22 minutes, 17 points, 2 rebounds, 1 assist in this game. Starting very first possession of the game, Jaren wins the tip, and he gets right to his, the Grizzlies give him the ball, and they move out the way. Grizzlies give him the ball, they move out of the way. He goes straight to his left-handed hook shot, which we've seen so many times. Bucket. Grizzlies up 2-0. The thing about that I like is, the fact that he didn't waste any time to get into it. But there's this other thing too. And, me and Joe Molex have talked about it over the years a little bit, and some of you have talked about it as well. Jaren had 1 assist. And this is I'm not making a big deal of it right now, but if you've heard Isolo in the press conferences where we've been talking to him, he's mentioned the fact that, after Ja, Jaren is another guy. We've talked about Jalen Wells, being put more in that role. He had a couple assists in this game, but it's pretty much a common thing. Like, it's known that Jaren Jackson Jr. is going to be relied on as a ball handler within his offense. And if that's the case, because I said relied on, he's not going to be just used periodically. He's going to be relied on as a playmaker within his offense. If that's the case, we need to see, a couple more solid passes out of doubles or seeing things before they happen. And Jaren is in year 8, so we should see a little bit more of that. Didn't really get to see that yet, but, first game, whatever. 7 of 20 shooting from the field. I think he typical Jaren. Sometimes Jaren takes a lot of wonky looking shots. Like he's going to the rim off balance. He's very much into angles. Like it's just something I've talked to him about in the past. Like he is, in a way, I call him an artistic type of scorer because he's getting to spots on the floor. And when he gets to the spot, it's the repetition that he's put in the months and months and years before. And he's pretty much just going off muscle memory. Sometimes it's not even, looking and seeing where you're at as much as it is as I know this spot. I worked on this shot 100 times and I know where to place it off the backboard and those type of things. So he had a couple shots, roll off that way. 7 to 20, you don't want to see your big man shooting 7 to 20 from the field. He did attempt 9 3-pointers, made 3 of them. A couple of them were close. I know he had an air ball in there as well, but 3 of 9 on 3-pointers. Overall, I thought it was an okay, performance on the offensive end for Jaren. He set a couple solid screens as well. Some screens that we're not used to seeing him set, some physical, screens. So we definitely got to see a little bit of that. But, I don't know if we'll see Jaren in the last preseason game. Not sure if that'll make much sense. This was a good opportunity for him to get out on the floor and get his feet wet. Speaking of getting his feet wet, what about the defensive end? Because when you talk about a lot of NBA players, they always, I say, oh, what's progressing? What progresses quicker? Offense, defense. And you ask a lot of guys, they say defense because of the effort. And I'm going to be a little critical right here because we give Jaren his flowers a lot of times when it comes to his defense. Jaren was a step slow in this one, and that's maybe it's expected. It's to be expected, however you want to shape it. Like, I'm not concerned about Jaren Jackson Jr.'s defense out of everybody. Not concerned about it. But in this game, it's okay to be critical of what he put on the floor. Jaren was matched up against Miles Bridges, former Michigan State teammate of his. They were matched up early in the game, and Miles Bridges got a lot of open looks. Now, here's the thing. If you've been watching the Grizzlies over the last couple years and you notice how the Grizzlies like to use Jaren Jackson Jr. in this roamer role in the past, and when they used him as a roamer in that role, the thing was he would help off of his guy a lot. And I don't want to say maybe it's created bad habits, but maybe it's created bad habits from the standpoint of when he's guarding a guy like Miles Bridges and he's knocked down a couple threes, he's become this player who's so adept at helping other players who are getting beat off the dribble. So we're going to talk about this more in the second segment too. But Jaren Jackson Jr., I think we saw Miles Bridges put up 29 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists, 11 of 16 shooting from the field, 5 of 7 on 3-pointers. Not all of that was on Jaren. Miles Bridges played 30 minutes. Jaren only played 22. But at the same time, there were a lot of situations where I'm looking and I'm seeing Miles Bridges get an open shot, and I'm like, why is Jaren all the way over there? Or why is he not, more in the picture? And then Miles Bridges made a couple, tough ones. Like he beat Jaren off the dribble from the 3-point line a couple times and things like that. So, Miles Bridges is a solid player. It's not to take anything away from him as a player. It's more so on what the expectation is for Jaren Jackson Jr. He is an all-defensive player, all-defensive second team last season. We've seen him make the all-defensive first team twice. We've seen him win a Defensive Player of the Year award. And with the way that this team is structured, Jaren's going to have to be, that A-level type defender. So all in all, it was a solid debut, I think, for Jaren. Go check out my story over at Commercial Appeal where I dived a little bit more into, the numbers with this debut and things like that. One of the other things that I mentioned, in my story at the CA was the fact that one thing that I wanted to pay attention to was how would Jaren Jackson Jr.'s teammates adjust around him. Because if you paid attention to the game, this was one of the first times where we saw a guy consistently get the ball and everyone just get out of the way and space the floor. We've seen so much movement, whether it's with legs, whether it's with the ball. It's been a lot of movement. And it's not to say Jaren is a ball stopper. That is not what I'm saying. It's more so to point out the fact that when you have talented scorers to the level of a Jaren Jackson Jr., sometimes you give those guys the ball and they have what they feel is an advantage. You get out of the way and you let them go to work. That's what we see a lot of times in the playoffs. We saw OKC doing it. The whole run. We've seen the Timberwolves do it with Anthony Edwards, Jokic, etc. The list goes on. The best players, when they have mismatches or when they have what they feel is a favorable matchup, you space the floor and get out of the way. This was the first time we really got to see this in bunches. Like, there have been certain situations where different Grizzlies players have had advantages But Jaren Jackson Jr. is a walking mismatch more times than not. And this is the first time we saw the Grizzlies kind of just space the floor. Guys just play around him. And it was a small sample size, so I want to see more of that. But I want to point it out, too, because it is something that we all need to pay attention to going forward. But speaking of paying attention to, I've been paying attention to this defense. I know y'all been paying attention to this defense. You can't help but pay attention to the defense when you see a team scores over 140 points against you. So we're going to talk about the defense from this game. What's up with the Grizzlies defense? We're going to talk about that next here on Locked On Grizzlies. But before we get to that, today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by FanDuel. Listen up. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer that you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet. All you got to do is put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Listen, FanDuel, there's so many reasons to love it. It makes watching football even more exciting when you got a little something riding on the action. And it could be the most random game. You could be watching the Browns versus the Texans, and you could be all in just because of the fact that you think Shadur Sanders is going to get in the game and throw a touchdown. So whether you're a casual fan or you just love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Again, all you got to do is visit FanDuel.com and download the app today to get started. Make sure you go take advantage of that now over at FanDuel.com. What's up with this Memphis Grizzlies defense, man? What's going on? We got to talk about it. And if you listened to me a couple days ago when I talked about the Grizzlies' defensive issues, it was a little bit calmer because it's like, they don't got Jaren Jackson Jr. right now. They don't got Zach Edey right now. Like, they're going to have interior problems. But Jaren Jackson Jr. played against the Hornets. Jaren Jackson Jr. is on the floor. And guess what? Just how we talked about teams were scoring 68 and 64 and 50 paint points in the first three preseason games, Charlotte scored 58. And not only did Charlotte score 58 paint points, 29 of 47 shooting in the paint. It's not the greatest shooting in the world, but that is well above what the Grizzlies have been averaging while shooting the paint. By the way, the Grizzlies only 28 paint points. So I know some people may have felt like, when they get Jaren back, the paint scoring is going to be better. Probably a little bit, but you're still missing that guy when it comes to paint scoring. That guy is John Morant. So expecting the Grizzlies number to stay low. But we're talking about the defense right now. I'm to the point where the fact that the paint defense was the problem against Charlotte, and Jaren Jackson Jr. did have one block. He challenged some shots, but again, I just felt like he was a step slow overall. So as he continues to get his footing, I will be more, I guess, I'll have stronger takes or stronger opinions on what this defense can be if we get to a couple weeks from now and Jaren Jackson Jr. is moving around and looking like Jaren Jackson Jr. and they're still giving up these type of numbers. Points allowed overall has been atrocious to me for the talent level that the Grizzlies have. And what I mean by that is if you go so far, because I'm going to say first halves, because that's what I've been focusing on, and I posted this on X for those who follow me on X. First half points allowed by the Grizzlies in each preseason game. First preseason game, the Grizzlies gave up 74 points in the first half. 74 points. Second preseason game, 68 points. Third preseason game, 63 points. And the fourth preseason game, 66. 74, 68, 63, 66. Now, this is where I go back to what I said at the top of the show. Yes, I understand the process over the results. But again, when I talk to people on this Grizzlies team, what's further ahead, the offense or the defense? A lot of guys say in different wording, some way they always get to the same answer, defense, because defense is more of an effort thing. So is the effort just not there? I don't get that sense. And in some situations, yes, that could be the case. But overall, we're seeing a lot of dudes get beat off the dribble right now. And we're talking about a team, and this is why I go back to the talent level. This is the problem for me. You drafted Jalen Wells. He turns into a very solid defender in year one. You go get Contavious Caldwell Pope, a very noted defender around the league, known a defender. The guy who's won 2 championships while guarding primary options in the NBA Finals. Then you got Cedric Coward. You go get him. Everyone's talking about, man, the wingspan, what he can be defensively. You got Scottie Pippen Jr.'s missed a couple games, recently, dealing with some soreness. So he didn't play in this game. That's another big defender for you. Vince Williams Jr. played. He's supposed to be a solid defender. He was a guy who started out on a 2-way contract. You promoted him up to the 15-man roster in part because of the irritant that he can be on the defensive end. Where is this defensive pressure, this intensity that we've been hearing about? They're going to pick up guys full court, and it's going to be, it's going to be difficult to get the ball across full court. They're going to take guys out of the offense. Man, look, based on what I'm seeing, Grizzlies defense is easy pickings right now. It's just any, meeny, miny, mo. I want to score over there. I want to score over there. I want to cut to the rim this time because I know no one's going to block my shot. Oh, I want to get this open three-pointer in the corner. It's however you want it. That's what it looks like. It just looks like there's very little resistance for the talent level. If you tell me you create a Grizzlies roster and you got a 6'7" wing in Jalen Wells who really, made waves as an NBA defender, then you go get Contavious Caldwell Pope, who, all things considered, was still solid defensively for Orlando last season. And you pair that, with Jaren Jackson Jr. And then you have a Cedric Coward coming off the bench, still a rookie, but defensively, he's coming out there. He's playing with the effort. He has the size. I'm expecting some results, some type of results on that end. And what we're seeing is guys just get beat off the dribble, get shook out of their shoes. I mean, a couple of different players. Miles Bridges did like an in-and-out dribble, on Santi Aldama, and Santi looked like he was about to fall into a chair. And then same thing, going over to Vince Williams. Like he was guarding someone on the perimeter. I think it was KJ Simpson in the fourth quarter. And I'm like, with all due respect to KJ Simpson, like, come on, man. We've seen Vince Williams guard better than that against Luka. We've seen Vince Williams guard better than that against KD. Like, how's KJ Simpson beating Vince Williams off the dribble so easily now when Luka and Kevin Durant were basically having to push him off of him because Vince was all in their grill, all in their face, just being that irritant. Still one more preseason game and still early in the season. Like, we're going to have time. So this last segment, not the last segment, the last part of this segment I want to talk about is I'm going to be a little bit more calm. And because we're coming hard at the defense right now, and I think it's justified. I mean, if you were listening all off season, not just to me, but to Zach Kleiman, to the players, to what they did. Words might not mean to you. You might move by the actions. Go look at the draft class. They drafted Jamal Meshack. That's a defensive-minded dog. Cedric Coward, 7'1.5", 7'2" wingspans, defensive-minded player. They even talked about Javon Small and his potential defensively as well. Like, going to get to Contavious Caldwell Pope. Jay Huff was very much known as a better offensive player than Jock Landale. But again, they wanted that toughness, wanted that defensive mentality. So you really went out and reshaped this roster, prioritizing guys who can strengthen the defense. And right now what we're seeing is a product that doesn't look better than last season. Does not look better than last season. And it's time to just bring attention to that. But let's be a little bit more calm here for the last minute before we move on. And I'll say this. Still super early. Guys are still getting their legs under them. Like, we talk about how defense is so much of an effort thing. I've seen a couple times where Jalen Wells will start off guarding the guy, and then, Contavious Caldwell Pope will switch on to him. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe he's a little tired. Maybe it's just Contavious Caldwell Pope saying, hey, I want him. But there is an effort thing, that needs to be taken into account, with these things. Like, not more so effort, but more so like energy. I think that's the word that I meant. So I'm looking at it like this. Still early in the season. If you go back to recent years, even when Taylor Jenkins constructed these great defenses for the Grizzlies. A lot of times, 2023, 2024, even last season, a lot of times we saw the Grizzlies get off to so defensive starts, and they would eventually lock in. Like it was pretty routine. The Grizzlies would start very slow beginning of the year, and some people say, "Oh, I'm concerned about the defense," and then at the snap of a finger, they would lock in. This is a different regime. This is a different coaching staff, or whatever. So, like, does that still happen? Because I'm gonna give it some time. I need to see the regular season unfold before I just straight up say this defense is trash, atrocious, or whatever. But I will say what we've seen so far has been that. What we've seen so far has been a poor defense that would concern me based on where I think this team could be. But if you look at the roster, it just doesn't make sense. Like, we can talk about I talk about it a lot. We can talk about the offensive shortcomings that a lot of these wings have. But a lot of these dudes are in the league because defensively is where they're making their money. That's where they're making their money. And if we're seeing this little resistance in the regular season, gonna be some conversations need to be had. But like I said, in the regular season, we'll revisit. We're gonna give it some time. Guys got to get their legs under them. With the Grizzlies playing this pressure, type of defense, it takes a lot. Takes a lot. So we'll see what that process looks like. And then you didn't have Scottie Pippen Jr. That's another guy that you're going to be able to throw into the fold. He hasn't played the last couple preseason games. So we'll talk more about that later. But we're going to end the show on a good note. Go into our last segment on a good note. We got to talk about Javon Small, who I feel had a really big game recently. We're going to talk about him next here coming up on Locked on Grizzlies. But before we talk about Javon Small, you got to remember that today's episode of Locked on Grizzlies is brought to you by Wayfair. Look, the holidays are going to be here before you know it, which is exciting. But getting your home ready for guests and celebrations can feel like a lot. So maybe your serveware needs a refresh, or the guest room could use new bedding. Wayfair has everything you need to get your holiday home ready, from Christmas trees to cookware, outdoor inflatables. It's your one-stop shop for every room in the house. Wayfair makes it easy to personalize your home for holidays with a huge selection for every style and budget. And with free, easy to deliver, even on the big stuff, you can get everything you need without the hassle of huge delivery fees. I know that's important to me. Hopefully it's important to y'all too. Make sure you go take advantage of these opportunities. Look, I love how easy it was for me to find the pieces that fit my style and my budget. Everything was in one place, and the checkout was a breeze. So now, look, instead of stressing about getting the house ready, you can actually just enjoy the holidays with friends and family. To get organized, refreshed, and ready for the holidays for way less, head over to wayfair.com right now to shop all things homes. That's Wayfair, WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. Make sure you go take advantage of that now over at wayfair.com. Today's episode of Locked on Grizzlies is also brought to you by Gametime. I use Gametime because I'm going to be going to a concert here coming up, and I use Gametime to get that for me done. But guess what? Basketball season is here too, and nothing beats being in the arena for those opening games. And we got to be real. Getting tickets can be a headache sometimes between, waiting in queues. You got the surprise fees, and then the prices jump right before you get the checkout. Have you looking kind of crazy, looking at the screen like, what's going on? It's easy to get frustrated when all you want to do is just cheer for your team. You just want to get to the game and have a good time. And that's where Gametime comes in, the app that gives fans the advantage. It's your ultimate life hack for scoring amazing NBA tickets. Fast, easy, and stress-free. Look, their zone deals are a game changer. You pick the section, and Gametime picks your seat, and you save big. You can even find NBA tickets for under $25. You can definitely find those at Grizzlies games. And Gametime will get those for you. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Swipe, tap, ticket, and go over at Gametime. Shout out to Javon Small, man. Javon Small has been an interesting player for me to cover so far. He is the one, I think, if you go back to the Grizzlies draft introductory press conference, and they took the picture afterwards, and Jamal Meshack was smiling, and Cedric Coward was smiling, and Isolo and Zach Kleiman were smiling, and then Javon Small was just there, straight face. And I think some people even, mistaked it for like a mug, and like, man, is he happy to be here? And, saying things like that. But as I've gotten to, I wouldn't say get to know him all the way yet. He's only hadn't been here that long, but just have some conversations with him and talk basketball. You start to learn that, he's just a mild mannered, mellow guy. But I talked to him in the locker room the other day by myself, and we were talking, and I sensed confidence. I sensed the confidence that, he was talking to me about, look, getting on the floor, getting an opportunity. And we talked about how he was talking about how he's a quick learner. He's figuring things out. One of the things that stood out to me, going back to the Hawks game, because we didn't talk about Javon Small much after that game. And I don't know if people noticed in real time, but Trae Young got Javon Small in that game twice with a swipe through. It's that move where if you do it in college, you don't really get away with it, much. But in the NBA, it's like a welcome to the NBA moment. Trae Young did a swipe through, walked straight to the free throw line, got 2 free throws because the Hawks were in the bonus. And Javon Small was, had his hand in the cookie jar. He had his hand on Trae Young's shoulder, and Trae Young took advantage. But he got him twice like that. And then later on in the game, someone tried to guard Javon Small the same way. And guess what he did? He did the swipe through move on that Hawks player. And I said, man, you must be a quick learner. Because Trae Young got him with it twice. And he said, okay. He adjusted in game. A lot of rookies, you get into your second season, and it's like, okay, I got it now. I got the little NBA veteran key, kinks, the little savvy moves that the veterans side of it. He pulled it out, adjusted mid-game, and that stood out to me. But Javon Small finally, got an extended opportunity, is what I call it. Not just an extended opportunity in this game against the Hornets from the standpoint of he played more, but to me, a lot about playing more, especially for a point guard, especially for someone like him. It's about who you get to play with. And Ty Jerome was out. We mentioned that. Scottie Pippen Jr. was out. And that allowed, Javon Small to take the floor with Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Jalen Wells, Jaren Jackson Jr., and Jock Landale. Pretty much projected starters. You flip Javon Small for Ja Morant, or, if Ja Morant isn't back, Ty Jerome, and you pretty much got your starting lineup, at the beginning of the season. So, look, Javon Small finished the game 6 of 9 shooting, from the field. 18 points, 4 rebounds, 8 assists. So much to like about that performance overall. 5 of 6 on 3-pointers, and I think he missed one of his first 2. And when he took it, I'm like, man, that, to me, I just love to see when guys take confident shots sometimes, and you could just sense that he can make those. Like, yeah, he didn't just take that shot because the clock was winding down. Like, that's a shot, like, when it rolled off the rim, he probably smacked his hands there, like, dang it, I got the next one. And when I saw that, I felt, like he might have a decent night. And then this is not a LeBron James moment. I really did feel like that. I'm not lying here on Locked On Grizzlies. But 5 of 6 from the 3-point line for Javon Small. He had a block. The 8 assists really jumped to me as well. I think it's probably the best passing night that someone's had so far, with the Grizzlies, in the preseason. So big night for Javon Small. Wanted to point that out because this guy, second round pick, but people around the Grizzlies will point it out to you. If you go back to the preseason, not preseason, excuse me, go back to Summer League, he didn't get to play a lot. When Javon Small was out there, though, when he played in Summer League, he was impressive. He was definitely impressive. I think he had one of the highest, or maybe the highest box plus minus in the time that he was on the floor or during Summer League. So shout out to Javon Small getting an extended opportunity. I think this is a guy, as the season goes on, if he's down there with the hustle a little bit, we're definitely going to be checking in. And if he's up here with the Grizzlies, at some point, opportunity is going to come. And look, the guy that we saw, I mean, he was fearless out there. And I get that sense from him. I definitely get the sense that this guy is a fearless player. He's going to be one that's going to be fun to follow. Another second-round pick for the Grizzlies that, I mean, we'll see. But early signs to me show, that guy can play. He can play some basketball based on what we've seen from him so far. Thank you for making Locked On Grizzlies your first listen every day. For your second listen, go find the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Josh Lloyd hosts the #1 fantasy basketball podcast, giving you daily tips and helping you win your league, all while making you a smarter NBA fan. Find Locked On Fantasy Basketball on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank you guys for tuning in to Locked On Grizzlies with me on today. Joe Mullinax will finally be back with you on a Friday, so he can sing his song and y'all can all sing together about it's Friday, and all that good stuff. But Joe Mullinax will be back on Friday, and I'll take the day off. And then after Friday's episode, we'll finally get into game week as we kind of get ready for the Grizzlies' upcoming NBA season. But thank you guys for tuning in to Locked On Grizzlies. Remember to like, comment, rate, review, subscribe, anything, all those good things. And remember that Locked On Grizzlies is free and available wherever you get your podcast: Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Music, wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Grizzlies is there. Till next time, I'm Damichael Cole, and we'll see you on Locked On Grizzlies.